If your emotions decide your actions, then your life is being run by reactions, not by choice. That is the uncomfortable truth most people avoid. They believe they are thinking, deciding, and choosing freely, while in reality, their behavior is being pulled by invisible emotional strings. A comment ruins their mood. A delay triggers anger. A small feeling becomes music, a bad decision. Over time, those decisions shape a life they never consciously chose. This audiobook is not about suppressing emotions. It is not about becoming cold, numb, or detached from being human. Emotions are not the enemy. The problem begins when emotions are allowed to lead. When feelings give orders and the mind obeys without question, that is where discipline collapses. Relationships suffer, progress stalls, and regret becomes familiar. The truth is simple but rarely practiced. Your emotions are signals. Your mind is the tool and you are meant to be the leader. When the mind is untrained, emotions take control by default. When the mind is trained, emotions still speak, but they no longer command. You feel them, you acknowledge them, and then you choose your response with clarity instead of impulse. Most people were never taught how to do this. They were taught how to express, vent, react, and follow their feelings. They were not taught how to pause. They were not taught how to sit with discomfort. They were not taught how to command their inner world when pressure rises. So when stress appears, they collapse inward. When temptation shows up, they give in. When life pushes back, emotions take the wheel. This audiobook exists to reverse that conditioning. Not with motivation, not with hype, but with training. Real mental training that teaches you how to separate feeling from action, create space between impulse and behavior, and build inner authority that does not break under pressure. Over the next hour, you will learn how to train your mind to obey you, not your emotions. You will learn why willpower alone is unreliable, why discipline outperforms motivation, and why calm is not a personality trait, but a skill you can build. You will learn how to do hard things even when feelings tell you to avoid them. So, you will learn how to stay steady when emotions try to pull you off course. Each chapter is designed as a mental exercise. Not theory, not philosophy for entertainment, but practical training you can apply immediately in real situations. Conversations that trigger you. Decisions you keep postponing. Moments when pressure makes you lose control. This is where the training matters. By the end of this audiobook, you will not be emotionless. You will be grounded. You will not be passive. You will be deliberate, and you will no longer feel betrayed by your reactions because you will understand how to lead yourself from the inside out. As you listen, do not rush. Do not multitask. Treat this as training. Listening. The goal is not to feel inspired for a moment. The goal is to build a mind that listens when you give it direction. If you're ready to stop being controlled by moods, urges, and emotional swings, stay with this. Share this audiobook with someone you know who struggles to stay in control under pressure, and begin the work of becoming the one who decides even when emotions allow. Chapter 1. Your mind was never trained to lead. You were never weak. You were never lacking intelligence, talent, or potential. What you were lacking was training. From early on, you were taught how to react, how to express what you feel, and how to seek comfort when things become uncomfortable. But almost no one taught you how to lead your own mind. So when pressure appears, emotions step forward by default, not because they are smarter than you, but because no one else is in command. An untrained mind does not choose its actions. It reacts to whatever feels strongest in the moment. It moves toward comfort and away from discomfort automatically. It avoids effort, resists uncertainty, and seeks relief as quickly as possible. This is not a moral failure. It is a survival pattern. And while survival patterns are useful in danger, they quietly sabotage long-term growth when they run your daily life. You see this pattern everywhere. You decide to stay calm, but anger slips out before you think. You plan to work, but distraction pulls you away. You promise yourself consistency, but motivation fades and you stop. You know what you should do, yet you do the opposite. Over time, this creates something far more damaging than a single mistake. It creates distrust in yourself. When your actions keep contradicting your intentions, you stop believing your own promises. This is the hidden cost of an untrained music mind. Most people believe control should feel natural. Music. They assume disciplined people are simply born that way. Calm people must have easier lives. Focused people must feel less resistance. None of this is true. Control is not a personality trait. Calm is not luck. Discipline is not motivation. These are trained capacities. Without training, the mind defaults to emotion-led behavior. With training, the mind learns to wait, assess, and respond instead of reacting blindly. Your brain is designed to prioritize survival, not purpose. It scans for threats, magnifies discomfort, music, and urges quick action to reduce tension. Stress says, get out of this music now. Anxiety says, avoid this before it hurts. Anger music says, defend yourself immediately. Comfort says, stay where it's safe. None of these voices ask whether their advice aligns with the future you want. They only care about short-term relief. And when relief becomes the goal, growth music stops. The mind you have today was shaped by repetition, not by conscious choice. Every time you reacted without pausing, you reinforced that pathway. Every time you avoided something hard, you taught your mind that avoidance works. Every time you followed a feeling without questioning it, you gave that feeling more authority. Over years, these repetitions became music, automatic. Automatic behavior feels like who you are, even when it is simply what you practiced most. Leadership begins the moment you recognize this. Not with self-criticism, not with shame, but with clarity. Your mind is not meant music to dominate you. It is meant to serve you, but service requires structure. Without rules, music, standards, and direction, the mind runs unchecked. It jumps music from thought to thought. It reacts to every emotion. It feels busy, yet produces little progress. It feels intense music, yet lacks direction. Training your mind starts with awareness, not forcing change, not suppressing emotion, awareness. And you begin to notice when you're reacting music instead of choosing. You notice how fast emotions push you toward action. You observe the physical signals, the tightening chest, clear throat, the shallow breath, the urge to escape or confront. These moments are not signs of failure. They are signals showing you exactly where training is needed. An untrained mind believes every thought it music produces. It treats emotions as commands. It confuses intensity with truth. Training introduces separation. You learn to see thoughts as events, music not orders, emotions as information, not instructions, and yourself as the one who decides what happens next. This separation creates space, and space is where control lives. At first, this feels uncomfortable. That discomfort is important. The mind resists losing authority. When you pause instead of reacting, the mind protests. It tells you to hurry. It tells you to resolve the feeling immediately. It pushes you back toward old patterns. This resistance is not a sign that training is failing. It is proof that training has begun. No system gives up control quietly. Leadership does not mean silencing emotion or pretending you do not feel. It means placing music, emotion in the correct role. Emotions are messengers. They alert you to values, boundaries, music, and needs. But messengers do not make decisions. When emotions lead, life becomes music, chaotic. When awareness leads, emotions become useful data instead of destructive forces. This is why so many people feel trapped by music themselves. They are not trapped by circumstances. An opportunity improves with repetition. Each time you pause, even if the result is imperfect, you strengthen the habit of interruption. Over time, interruption becomes automatic. Reaction slows, choice becomes clearer. Without the pause, emotions collapse music time. Everything feels immediate, everything feels urgent. With the pause, time expands. You see options, you see music outcomes. You see yourself from a distance. That music distance is not detachment, it is perspective. This is why calm people appear music powerful. They are not suppressing emotion. They are pausing inside it. They are giving themselves space before music acting. That space allows them to choose words carefully, to delay music decisions, to avoid unnecessary conflict. Others mistake music this for confidence or charisma. In reality, it is trained restraint. The pause also protects you from regret. Most regret does music not come from careful decisions. It comes from rushed reactions. words spoken, music in anger, messages sent in frustration, choices made to escape discomfort. When you build the pause, you reduce the number of decisions made under emotional pressure. That alone changes the trajectory of music, your life. There will be moments when pausing feels unbearable, when the emotion feels too strong, when the urge to act feels overwhelming. These are the moments that matter most. If you can pause here even briefly, you are strengthening the deepest layer of self-control. You are proving to yourself that feelings do not dictate music behavior. Pausing does not mean doing nothing forever. It means delaying action long enough to decide deliberately. Sometimes the right choice is to speak. Sometimes it is to walk away. Sometimes it is to wait. The pause does not tell you what to do. It gives you the ability to choose. As you practice this, you will notice a shift. Emotions begin to lose their urgency, not because they disappear, but because they learn that rushing no longer works. The mind learns that it will not be dragged into action by intensity alone. That lesson rewires behavior at a deep level. This chapter is about reclaiming time. A few seconds between feeling music and action may seem insignificant, but those seconds accumulate. They create a new pattern, a new identity, someone who does not react blindly. Someone who does not hand control to every emotion that appears. Music, build the pause, protect it, practice it daily. Because in that small space between impulse and behavior, your power lives. Chapter 4. Why discipline beats music motivation every time. Motivation feels powerful when it shows up. It creates energy, urgency, music, and optimism. In those moments, everything seems possible. You feel ready to change, ready to act, ready to commit. But motivation is unstable music by nature. It appears without warning and disappears just as easily. Discipline music, by contrast, rarely feels exciting. It does not create a rush. It does not promise immediate reward. Yet discipline is what actually shapes behavior music over time. Most people build their lives around motivation. Music, they wait until they feel ready. They wait until the mood is right. Music, they wait until effort feels easier. When motivation is present, they act quickly, music, and intensely. When it fades, they stop. This creates a cycle of enthusiasm followed by inactivity, and progress becomes emotional instead music of intentional. Motivation is an emotional state, and like all emotional states, it is temporary. It depends on energy levels, circumstances, feedback, and mood. The problem is not that motivation fades. Music, the problem is allowing it to lead. When motivation leads, emotions decide when you act, and when music, you don't. That means your mind is still obeying feelings instead of following direction. Discipline works differently. Discipline is not a feeling. It is a commitment made in advance and honored regardless of internal music conditions. Discipline does not ask how you feel today. It asks what you decided matters. That difference may sound small, but it changes everything. It moves authority from emotion to intention. An untrained mind resists discipline music because discipline removes negotiation. The mind prefers flexibility when it benefits comfort. It prefers to revisit decisions repeatedly. Maybe later, not today, just this once. These thoughts feel logical, but they are emotional delays disguised as reasoning. Every time you accept them, you teach the mind that resistance works. Discipline ends that conversation. Music, when you act without waiting for motivation, you send a clear signal to your mind. Feelings do not decide timing. At first, the mind reacts strongly. It increases discomfort, it amplifies fatigue, it produces music excuses. This is not failure. This is the mind testing whether the old rules still apply. It is checking whether discomfort still has authority. Most people give in at this stage. They assume resistance music means something is wrong. In reality, resistance means discipline is challenging emotional control. Sayings, if you continue anyway, the mind begins to adapt. It learns that music complaints no longer change outcomes. Over time, resistance loses intensity because it stops working. Discipline is often misunderstood as harshness or self-punishment. That misunderstanding keeps people from practicing it consistently. Real discipline is calm and firm, not aggressive. It acknowledges discomfort without obeying it. You can feel tired and still music act. You can feel bored and still continue. Discipline does not require emotional agreement. This is why discipline builds authority. Authority comes from consistency, not force. When your mind sees that you follow through regardless of mood, it adjusts its behavior. It stops escalating emotion to control you. It becomes quieter, more cooperative. Obedience emerges through repetition, not willpower. Motivation creates peaks. Discipline creates baseline. Peaks feel exciting, but baseline determines your life. What you do occasionally matters far less music than what you do repeatedly. Discipline raises your baseline. It makes action normal instead of exceptional. Another reason discipline outperforms motivation is that it reduces decision fatigue. When actions are decided in advance, you preserve mental energy. You're no longer debating with yourself every day. You are no longer checking your emotional state before acting. You simply execute what was already chosen. That simplicity creates clarity and reduces music stress. Motivation promises ease but delivers inconsistency. Discipline promises effort but delivers control. Discipline also protects you from emotional extremes. When things feel good, discipline keeps you grounded and consistent. When things feel heavy, discipline keeps you moving forward. It creates stability across changing emotional states. That stability is essential for long-term growth. There is a deeper shift that happens when discipline becomes part of your identity. You stop seeing yourself as someone who tries when motivated. You begin to see yourself as someone who follows through. Identity shapes behavior more powerfully than emotion. When you identify as disciplined, action becomes music expected rather than heroic. This does not mean discipline eliminates struggle. It means struggle no longer dictates outcome. You still feel resistance. You still feel fatigue. But those feelings no longer control timing or commitment. They exist alongside action instead of blocking it. At first, discipline feels heavy because the mind is unused to it. Over time, discipline feels lighter than emotional chaos. Routine replaces internal conflict. Execution replaces overthinking. The effort shifts from deciding to doing. That shift frees mental space and builds confidence. Confidence does not come from feeling good. It comes from keeping promises to yourself. Discipline is how those promises are kept. Each follow-through strengthens trust in yourself. That trust compounds into calm authority. Discipline also reshapes how the mind interprets music discomfort. And instead of seeing discomfort as a threat, the mind learns to see it as part of the process. Effort stops feeling personal. Resistance stops feeling meaningful. It becomes background music, noise instead of a command. This chapter is about choosing what leads your life. Music, if motivation leads, emotions decide. If discipline leads, music, you decide. The mind obeys what is enforced consistently, not what feels intense in the moment. As you move forward, stop waiting for the right mood. Stop asking how music you feel before acting. Decide once clearly and then follow through. Even when emotions protest, when your mind realizes that you no longer negotiate with feelings, it adapts. And when it adapts, obedience becomes natural. Discipline does not remove emotion from your life. Music, it puts emotion in its proper place. You still feel, so you still experience highs and lows, but action is no longer controlled by mood. It is guided by decision. That is why discipline, not motivation, creates lasting control. Chapter 5. Train your mind to do what's hard. Your mind avoids difficulty for a simple reason. It is designed to protect comfort, conserve energy, and reduce risk. This design kept humans alive for thousands of years, but it quietly works against you in modern life. When effort feels uncomfortable, the mind interprets it as something to escape. When something feels hard, unfamiliar, or demanding, the mind looks for relief. This is not a weakness. It is conditioning. The problem begins when this conditioning goes unchallenged. Every time you avoid what is hard, your mind learns a lesson. It learns that discomfort is dangerous. It learns that delay is safety. It learns that escape works. Music, these lessons are not taught consciously. They are absorbed through repetition. Over time, avoidance becomes automatic. You stop noticing it. You call it procrastination, music, low energy, or lack of motivation. But what you are really experiencing, music, is an untrained response. Training your mind means deliberately interrupting this pattern. Doing what is hard is not about music punishment or self-denial. It is about teaching your mind a new relationship with discomfort. Hard music does not mean harmful. Hard does not mean impossible. Hard simply means effort is required. When the mind learns that effort does not lead music to danger, its resistance begins to soften. Most people misunderstand music's strength. They believe strength is something you feel first and music, act from later. In reality, strength is something you build by acting first. Waiting to feel music strong keeps the mind in control. Acting while you feel resistance teaches the mind obedience. This is why training music happen while discomfort is present. And if you only act when things feel easy, your mind never adapts. It stays fragile. It stays music reactive. Growth requires exposure. Not overwhelming exposure, but consistent chosen exposure. Chosen difficulty is critical. Difficulty imposed on you creates resentment. Difficulty chosen by you creates authority. When you choose to do something hard, you are not just completing a task. You are reinforcing leadership. You are showing your mind that you decide the direction, not the feeling. Hard things come in quiet forms. Staying focused when distraction is available. Continuing when progress feels slow. Speaking honestly when silence would be easier. Getting started when you would rather wait. These moments do not look dramatic, but they are where training happens. Each one is an opportunity to reinforce a new rule. Discomfort does not stop action. At first, resistance feels loud. The mind complains, it negotiates. It creates excuses that sound reasonable. Not today, you need rest. You can do it later. These thoughts are not random. They are attempts to regain music control. The mind is testing whether discomfort still has authority over behavior. Most people mistake this resistance as a sign they should stop. Training requires a different interpretation. Resistance is not a warning. It is feedback. It tells you that the old pattern is being challenged. If you continue despite resistance, something important happens. The mind learns that its protests no longer change outcomes. Action is what trains the mind, not intention. You do not train your mind by thinking about doing hard things. You train it by doing them while resistance is present. Waiting for resistance to disappear is a mistake. Resistance fades after action, not before. Each time you act anyway, you weaken the belief that avoidance is necessary. Small acts matter more than big ones. Waking up when you said you would. Finishing a task without checking your phone. Holding attention a little longer than feels comfortable. These small choices accumulate. They quietly reshape your internal hierarchy. The mind learns that effort is normal. Discomfort is temporary. Avoidance is optional. Over time, your tolerance expands. What once felt overwhelming begins to feel manageable. This does not mean life becomes easier. It means you become more capable. Your threshold rises. Stress that used to derail you becomes something you can carry without collapsing. You notice it. There is a thought about failure. There is a thought about quitting. Numbing the thought reminds you that music is something you are experiencing, not something you are. At first, this feels uncomfortable. The mind wants engagement. It wants resolution. It wants certainty. When you refuse to engage, the mind escalates. Thoughts become louder, more dramatic, more urgent. This is not a sign that detachment is failing. It is a sign that the mind is testing whether its old strategies still work. If you stay neutral, something interesting happens. The thought loses momentum. Without attention, it weakens. Not immediately, but consistently. The mind learns that thoughts no longer trigger automatic reaction. Over time, the volume lowers. This is how calm is built. Detachment also protects you from emotional spirals. Thoughts often trigger emotions which then trigger more thoughts. Fear creates fearful thinking. Anger creates justifying narratives. The cycle feeds itself. Detachment interrupts the loop. When you observe the thought without reacting, the emotional charge dissipates faster. Another important shift happens here. You stop identifying with every mental story. Instead of I am anxious, it becomes anxious thoughts are present. Instead of I'm failing, it becomes the mind is producing a failure story. Language matters. It shapes perception. Perception shapes behavior. Detachment does not make you passive. It makes you precise. You become more selective about which thoughts you act on. Useful thoughts get attention. Unhelpful thoughts are allowed to pass. This selectivity is leadership. The mind resists this training because it threatens its dominance. The mind wants to be heard constantly. It wants to comment on everything. Detachment does not silence the mind. It simply removes its authority. That loss of authority feels uncomfortable at first. You may notice moments when detachment feels like losing control. In reality, you are gaining it. You're no longer pulled in every direction by internal noise. You are choosing where to place attention. Attention is power. There will be moments when thoughts feel overwhelming, when they repeat relentlessly, when detachment feels impossible. In these moments, do not escalate the effort. Return to observation. Return to breath. Return to the body. Thoughts live in the mind. The body anchors you in the present. Detachment is a skill built through repetition. You will forget. You will get pulled back into thinking. That is normal. Training is not about staying detached permanently. It is about returning more quickly each time you notice you have been carried away. Over time, something shifts. Thoughts still appear, but they feel lighter. They no longer dictate mood as strongly. They no longer decide action automatically. You begin to experience space between thought and response. That space is freedom. This chapter is about reclaiming your role as observer. Thoughts can exist without control. Emotions can rise without command. You do not need to fight your mind to lead it. You need to stop obeying every voice it produces. Detach gently. Observe consistently. Act deliberately. When thoughts lose their power to command, the mind becomes quieter. And in that quiet, real control begins to emerge. Chapter 7. Staying calm. When emotions try to take over, calm is often misunderstood. Many people believe calm is something you either have or you don't. A personality trait, a natural temperament. They assume calm people are simply less emotional, less sensitive, or less affected by pressure. This belief is comforting because it removes responsibility, but it is also false. Calm is not a trait. Calm is a trained response. When emotions try to take over, the body reacts first. Heart rate increases, breathing shortens, muscles tense, attention narrows, the system prepares for action. This response is automatic. You do not choose it. What you choose is what happens next. Calm is built in that next step. Most people confuse calm with suppression. They try to push emotions down, ignore them, or pretend they are not there. This creates internal pressure. Suppressed emotion does not disappear. It waits. Then it returns stronger, often at the worst possible moment. Staying calm is not about denying emotion. It is about regulating your response while emotion is present. The trained mind understands this distinction. When pressure hits the untrained mind panics. It interprets emotional intensity as danger. It rushes to reduce discomfort as fast as possible. That rush leads to impulsive speech, defensive behavior, or withdrawal. Calm disappears because the mind believes urgency requires immediate action. Training teaches a different rule. Intensity does not equal emergency. The first skill in staying calm is recognizing activation early. Most emotional blow-ups do not start suddenly. They build. There are signals. Tightness in the chest, shallow breathing, a surge of energy, a narrowing of focus. When you learn to notice these signals early, you gain leverage. You are closer to the moment where choice is still available. Breath plays a critical role here. Not deep breathing to relax but controlled breathing to stabilize. Slow, deliberate exhales tell the nervous system that immediate action is not required. This does not eliminate emotion. It lowers its volume enough for awareness to return. Awareness is the foundation of calm. Posture matters more than most people realize. When emotions rise, posture often collapses or tightens. Shoulders hunch, jaw clenches. The body communicates stress to the mind. Adjusting posture sends a different message. Upright spine, relaxed shoulders, unclenched jaw. These small physical shifts support emotional regulation. Calm is supported by the body, not just the mind. Another key element of calm is internal language. When emotions surge, the mind often escalates the situation with dramatic narratives. This is unbearable. I can't handle this. Something is wrong. These statements music increase intensity. Training replaces them with neutral observation. Strong emotion is present. Pressure is rising. Neutral language reduces threat perception. Reduced threat perception restores music control. Calm also requires permission to not act immediately. Many people believe staying calm means resolving the situation quickly. In reality, staying calm often means delaying response, silence, music stillness, waiting. This delay is uncomfortable, especially when emotions want release. But delay is what prevents escalation. When you do not react immediately, you interrupt the emotional loop. Emotions rise on peak and fall if not fed by action. Reacting feeds them. Calm starves them of momentum. This does not mean avoiding the issue. It means choosing timing instead of surrendering to urgency. Pressure reveals training. Anyone can appear calm when things are easy. Calm under pressure is music where skill shows. This is why training must include exposure to stress. Not overwhelming stress, but manageable stress. Difficult conversations, time constraints, music, unexpected changes. Each exposure is an opportunity to practice regulation. You will not stay calm perfectly. There will be moments when emotions break through. Training is not about perfection. It is about recovery. How quickly you return to control matters more than whether you lose it briefly. Each recovery strengthens regulation. One of the most powerful shifts in staying calm is letting go of the need to control outcomes. Much emotional intensity music comes from attachment to results. You want things to go a certain way. When they don't, emotions spike. Calm improves when focus shifts from outcome to conduct. You cannot control everything. You can control how you respond. Calm people are often mistaken for indifferent. In reality, they care deeply. They simply do not let care turn into chaos. They feel emotion fully without broadcasting it through impulsive behavior. This restraint is not weakness. It is authority. Staying calm also protects relationships. Emotional reactions damage trust faster than almost anything else. Words spoken in intensity cannot be taken back. Calm preserves clarity. It allows communication without collateral damage. Over time, people begin to feel safer around you. Safety creates influence. The mind resists calm because calm removes drama. Drama feels alive. Drama feels meaningful. Calm feels quiet, but quiet is where control lives. When you choose calm repeatedly, the mind learns that intensity no longer guarantees action. It adjusts. Emotional surges become less frequent and less disruptive. This chapter is about building steadiness, not emotional numbness. Steadiness, the ability to remain grounded while emotions move through you, the ability to hold your center when pressure rises. As you continue, remember this. Calm is not the absence of emotion. Calm is the presence of control. It is built through awareness, breath, posture, language, and delayed response. Each time you stay calm under pressure, you reinforce leadership. Emotions may try to take over. They may be loud. They may be convincing, but they do not get the final say. With training, you do. Chapter 8. Make your mind obey you. Everyday control is not something you achieve once and keep forever. It is something you practice daily or slowly lose. This is where most people fail. They understand the ideas. They feel clarity while listening. They experience moments of control. Then life gets busy. Pressure returns. Old habits quietly take over. The mind slips back into leading by default. This chapter is about preventing that slide. Your mind does not obey intentions. It obeys patterns. What you repeat becomes authority. What you practice becomes automatic. If you want your mind to obey you consistently, you must build a structure that reinforces leadership every day, especially when motivation fades and attention weakens. The mistake most people make is relying on willpower. Willpower is a short-term resource, so it fluctuates with energy, stress, and emotion. When willpower runs out, habits take over. That is why systems matter more than effort. Systems carry you when effort disappears. Making your mind obey you daily means removing decision-making from moments of weakness. You decide in advance how you will act. Then you follow that decision regardless of mood. This turns control from an emotional struggle into a routine behavior. Start with non-negotiables. Not many, just a few. These are actions you perform every day without debate. They do not have to be dramatic, they have to be consistent. A specific time you wake up, a short period of focused work, a daily practice of pausing before reacting. These behaviors anchor leadership. When your mind knows certain actions are non-negotiable, it stops arguing about them. Resistance fades because resistance no longer works. This is how obedience is built, not through force but through music predictability. Another key element is identity. The mind follows identity more reliably than goals. Goals are temporary. Identity music is continuous. Instead of telling yourself what you want to achieve, reinforce who you are becoming. Music: I am someone who pauses before reacting. I am someone who finishes what I start. I am someone who does hard things daily. These statements are not affirmations. They are reminders of standards music you enforce through action. Every time you act in alignment with that identity, it strengthens. Every time you act against it, it weakens. The mind learns quickly. It follows what you repeatedly prove, not what you promise. Daily reflection plays an important role here. Not long journaling, simple awareness. At the end of the day, notice where you led and where you reacted. No judgment, just observation. Awareness sharpens behavior. When the mind knows it will be observed, it behaves differently. This quiet accountability reinforces control. Consistency matters more than intensity. Many people train hard for short periods, then stop. This teaches the mind instability, short bursts followed by collapse. The mind adapts to inconsistency by waiting it out. Consistency music teaches permanence. Even small actions, when done daily, reshape behavior at a deep level. Your environment also trains your mind. What you see, hear, and interact with influences behavior. Reduce friction for disciplined action. Increase friction for distraction. Make the right actions easier and the wrong actions harder. This is not weakness, it is strategy. Non-leadership includes designing conditions that support obedience. Another critical habit is protecting your energy. When you are exhausted, emotional control weakens. This does not mean avoiding effort, it means respecting recovery. Sleep, movement, and moments of stillness are not luxuries, they support regulation. A regulated nervous system makes leadership easier. There will be days when you slip, days when emotions win, days when you react. These days do not undo training. What matters is response. Do you spiral into self-criticism, or do you return to practice immediately? Returning quickly is a sign of control. Delaying return is how habits decay. The mind tests leadership. Occasionally, it pushes boundaries. It looks for exceptions. Just this once. Leadership means recognizing these tests and responding consistently. Consistency is what convinces the mind that you are serious. Over time, obedience begins to feel natural. You stop forcing control. You stop negotiating constantly. Decisions feel simpler. Reactions slow down. Calm appears more quickly. This is not because life became easier. It is because your internal system became stable. Making your mind obey you every day does not mean becoming rigid or robotic. It means becoming reliable. You can adapt without collapsing. You can feel emotion without surrendering control. You can face difficulty without retreating. This is the final shift. Control is no longer something you chase. It is something you maintain. Like physical strength, it fades when neglected and grows when practiced. As you move forward, remember this principle. What you repeat, you command. Every pause you practice, every hard thing you complete, every emotion you feel without obeying. These moments accumulate. They form identity. They build authority. Train daily. Lead consistently. Let obedience emerge from structure, not struggle. When your mind knows you will follow through, it stops resisting. And when resistance fades, control becomes your default. Control was never meant to turn you into someone cold, rigid, or disconnected from life. True control is not emotional suppression, and it is not constant self-force. Control is leadership. It is the quiet ability to stay present, steady, and deliberate while emotions move through you. And that leadership always begins on the inside. Throughout this audiobook, one central truth has been repeated in different forms. Your emotions are not the enemy. Your thoughts are not the problem. The real issue appears when either of them is allowed to lead unchecked, when emotions decide timing, when thoughts dictate music direction, when reactions replace choice. That is where people lose themselves, not because they are weak, but because they were never taught how to lead their inner world. You have now seen that leadership is trainable. You learned that your mind was never trained to lead, only to react. You learned that emotions are signals, not commands. You learned how to build a pause between feeling and action, and why that pause is the foundation of self-control. You learned why discipline outperforms motivation, why doing hard things builds obedience, and why music, detaching from thoughts, creates clarity rather than conflict. You learned that calm is not a personality trait, but a practiced response. And finally, you learned that control is not achieved once, but reinforced daily music through structure and consistency. None of this requires perfection. Perfection is another illusion that keeps people music stuck. What matters is repetition. Small decisions made consistently. Music, each pause you practice. Each moment you feel discomfort and stay anyway. Each time you act without waiting for the right mood. These moments seem ordinary, but they compound over time. They reshape how your mind responds music to pressure. At some point, something subtle but powerful happens. You stop feeling surprised by your own reactions. You stop music breaking promises to yourself. You stop living at the mercy of moods. Your responses slow down. Your decisions feel cleaner. You begin to trust yourself, not because you always feel confident, but because you know you will follow through even when emotions protest. That trust music is the foundation of real confidence. Life will continue to challenge you. Stress will appear. Emotions will surge. Thoughts will argue. None of that disappears. What changes is your position. You're no longer inside the storm. You're standing above it, directing music, your response, feeling fully but choosing deliberately. Remember this principle as you move forward. Your mind does not obey insight. It obeys patterns. Understanding creates awareness, but repetition creates authority. Music, what you practice becomes automatic. What you repeat becomes identity. Build the patterns and obedience follows naturally. Do not wait for perfect conditions to apply what you have learned. Apply it in ordinary moments. In conversations that music, test your patience. In routines that require consistency. In moments when discomfort music whispers that avoidance would be easier. Those are the moments that matter. Those are the moments where leadership is built. If this audiobook helped you see yourself more clearly, share it with someone who needs that clarity. Someone who feels controlled by reactions, emotions, or internal noise. Music, sometimes the most valuable thing you can give another person, is a framework for self-command. As you return to your daily life, carry this with you. Emotions will speak, thoughts will appear, pressure will rise, but you decide. And when your mind learns that your decisions are consistent, calm stops being effort. Control stops being struggle. Music, it becomes your default state. That is not dominance. That is self-mastery.